Love's Unspoken Melody. Chapter 1. A Chance Encounter. The night was alive with the symphony of crickets and the soft rustling of leaves, their gentle serenade carrying me through the quiet streets as I strolled along the deserted alleyway. The summer air caressed my skin, filled with a sense of freedom that only came with the moon's full embrace, where stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across the velvety black canvas above. It was on nights such as these that I found solace in the silence, letting my thoughts wander without the distraction of words. I had grown accustomed to living life without them. A melody without lyrics. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, and his eyes met mine with an understanding gaze that pierced through the darkness. It was then that I noticed the way he looked at me, as though we shared a secret language, one unspoken yet understood by both our souls. He smiled, and I couldn't help but mirror his gesture, drawn to him like moths to moonlight. Jack's eyes were pools of warmth in the cool night, an invitation to step into his world where words weren't necessary for communication. "I don't need to hear your voice," he said softly as we parted ways on the narrow path. "I see what you're trying to say." A gentle breeze carried his words away, but they resonated deeply within me. My curiosity was piqued, and I found myself turning back with a silent nod before following him. We moved side by side in comfortable silence, our footsteps carrying us further into the unknown. He showed me hidden corners of this city that even the locals had forgotten, each new discovery revealing layers of its history through his guided whispers and my attentive listening. Our connection grew with every shared glance, the chemistry between us pulsating like a whispered promise. Jack spoke in hushed tones as we stood before an old clock tower, the echoes of the past reverberating from within its walls. "Here," he murmured, "time speaks differently." I closed my eyes, savoring the texture of his breath against my neck when he leaned close to guide me through time. Minutes became hours under the watchful gaze of the ancient machinery. As we left, a shooting star streaked across the sky, and in that moment, I knew our lives had been altered by this chance encounter. Days passed without us meeting, days filled with the humdrum rhythm of daily routines. Yet, I would steal glances at him from afar. Jack, manning his bookstore. Each passing day heightened the anticipation for another silent connection. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson, he beckoned me to follow him through the crowded market. We settled between towering shelves, fingers brushing briefly before parting ways again. My pulse quickened as he began reading aloud, his voice weaving a tapestry that transported us both to worlds unknown. As the final notes faded away, our eyes met beneath the soft glow of the setting sun. In that moment, I felt the weight of unspoken words hanging between us like an unfinished symphony. The allure was too great, we couldn't resist any longer. That night, Jack took me to his cozy abode nestled within the heart of the old city. A space adorned with books and whispers from distant lands. His home became my sanctuary, a place where words were unnecessary. The following days blurred into an unspoken rhythm, stolen glances, lingering touches that promised more, and laughter born from shared secrets. But as our connection deepened, so did the fear of what happened when love was truly expressed. Jack's hands found their way to mine in the quiet hours of dawn, his fingers intertwining with mine, sending shivers down my spine as he whispered an unspoken melody of promises. The temptation to speak became overwhelming, but there they remained. Our silent vows. The night before I left for a solo trip, we met in secret beneath the same clock tower that had birthed our connection. Jack's eyes locked onto mine, his lips parting slightly as if searching for courage. My heart pounded against my ribcage, threatening to break free from my chest. In a moment that defied time and logic, he reached out with an open palm, I offered mine, placing it within his. And there we stood under the starlit sky, hearts beating in unison as our fingers intertwined for the first time. The clock tower whispered secrets of love and longing to us both. His lips brushed against my knuckles before pulling away, a gentle caress that echoed through me like a tender note from an ethereal instrument. "Come back to me," he implored with his eyes, pleading in silence. I nodded, promising the universe that our melody would continue to unfold. Little did we know, words can be deadly weapons when misused. Chapter 2. The Silent Promise. Summer days blurred into a montage of stolen moments and hushed conversations, our connection growing with each new encounter. Jack's bookstore became my sanctuary. His home a haven where silence was a language I understood perfectly. It wasn't until we began to share stories through touch that the world started to unravel around us. His fingers tracing lines on my palm spoke volumes of love letters unsent and dreams yet to be shared. Mine painted pictures of vulnerability, a canvas devoid of words yet overflowing with passion. Each touch felt like an unspoken promise, a silent serenade. Lila, a writer by profession, found solace in Jack's embrace. The world's cacophony muted as we sat together amidst shelves filled with tales of forgotten love stories and lost dreams. It wasn't until he read from one such book that I realized his secret: Jack was mute from birth. The realization struck me like an autumn breeze on a crisp morning, leaving my breath caught in my throat. His lips pursed into a smile, understanding dawning on his face as well. Silence had been our solace, now it could be the very thing that destroyed us. My fingers danced over the pages he read to me, tracing lines of love and longing etched by authors long gone. The book's final page fell from my grasp, and in an act of instinctual bravery, Jack's hand found mine once more. He took it gently between his, pulling me toward a hidden room filled with instruments. Guitars, violins, pianos that echoed our unspoken harmonies. In this sanctuary of soundless music, we composed together under the watchful gaze of ancient clocks and forgotten stories. A single touch, a shared smile. These were our promises to one another. But the fear of words spoke louder than any language ever could. Crept into my mind with each passing day. Jack's hands guided mine over the strings of his guitar, creating a melody that resonated deeply within me. My own fingers learned to dance across the keys as he watched intently, and soon our symphony filled the room. An ode to the music we'd yet spoken aloud. I feared it was this very silence that could tear us apart if it was ever broken. Chapter 3. Love's Unheard Melody. The night of the lunar eclipse arrived unexpectedly, a celestial event heralding the crescendo of our symphony. Jack's hands guided mine through an unfamiliar score as moonlight seeped into his home through skylights above. In that moment, I knew what needed to be done. We needed more than just touch. We required a declaration of love, a crescendo of silence broken by the very language it protected us from: speech. With trembling hands, Jack scribbled words on parchment as the moon hung low in the sky. He passed me the page, and I read aloud for the first time in my life without fear or inhibition. His eyes brimmed with unshed tears, his smile transformed into a promise of love born from our silent connection. As the ink dried under the moonlight, he took it and read back to me, voice trembling yet resolute. "I'm yours now, Lila," he declared, reading aloud for the first time in his life. My hands found their way over the strings once more, a composition of our love etched on the page. A symphony born from silence that refused to be silenced by language or time. Jack pulled me close, lips brushing against mine as the final notes of our melody dissipated into the night air. And in the heart of the city's ancient center, beneath the clock tower, we spoke our first words. I love you, a declaration that danced between us like the celestial ballet above. In the end, it wasn't silence that could part us, it was the power of language itself. For two people who knew the beauty of the unspoken, words became the bridge to express emotions both profound and raw. We left behind the sanctuary of his home, hands clasped as we navigated through a world still learning our melody. The city hummed in harmony with us. Every whisper, every rustling leaf in homage to our love. And when the dust settled around our feet, under the moon's final gaze, Jack spoke once more, forever.